Hey everybody, Douglas Blair Roberts here, the Super Beta 400 here, and of course, the brown skinned human here, back for another retro review. And this time, this is my review of pretty much the entire Double Dragon franchise, with the exception of the movie and the video game tie-in. I decided to save that for another video, but this is my review of the original four Double Dragon games: Double Dragon 1, 2, 3, and Super, and of course the non-canon Double Dragon 5, the Shadow Falls, which is bundled together with the Double Dragon video game series, but is not a part of that video game series. Instead, this video game is an adaptation of the cartoon, of the Saturday morning cartoon from the early 90s. I will also be reviewing the Saturday morning cartoon. Cartoon. Just like with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, I've reviewed Double Dragon a bunch of times on my Doug A798 and Super Vader 400 channels. So I decided to do this full-length joint review of the entire franchise, of the entire Double Dragon franchise. Huge fan of the Double Dragon cartoon. It got me into the Double Dragon franchise alongside the movie, and I've been a huge fan um, ever since. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the games and the cartoon. Once again, if you want to see the previous reviews of Double Dragon, you can check the links in the description box below. But right now, this is my review of the entire Double Dragon franchise. With that being said, let's get started right now. Once again, this is my world. Also, before I start, I will also be giving my thoughts on what I want to see from the Double Dragon franchise. I should give my thoughts on Double Dragon Neon, and I may do that, but I really don't care much for that game. So I will talk about what I want to see from the Double Dragon franchise in both video game and animation and live action movie form. With that being said, once again, this is my world. It's time for part 2 of my review of both the Double Dragon cartoon and video games. Unlike in other videos, since there are like 5 video games involved in this review, I'm only gonna review Double Dragons for. I'm only gonna. I'm only gonna play Double Dragons 4 and 5 in the background because it's hard to play video games and review at the same time. So I'm gonna start it off with the first 4 Double Dragon games because these, of course, came first. And once again, the links to my original Double Dragon reviews for those of you who are new to this channel will be in the description box below. But this is the first Double Dragon review with this brand new video style. So with that being said, let me get started right. Now. The Double Dragon games haven't aged well visually, but they're still fun to play and I consider them the godfathers of one of my all-time favorite video game genres, the beat 'em up genres. Even several elements of these games are not only featured in modern day action adventure games, but also various fighting games. Double Dragon 4, which is known as Super, 5, The Shadow Falls, and 6, the movie, are in my opinion the best Double Dragon games, followed by the original trilogy 1, 2, and 3, which started it all. The story of the first game is a action-adventure post-apocalyptic anime style of film in the 80s. After a massive nuclear war, New York has become a lawless city with crime everywhere. The Black Dragon gang kidnaps Mary, and it's up to the Lee brothers, Billy and Jimmy, the 2 martial artists, who take it upon themselves to battle the Black Dragon gang. The Black Dragon punches Beard in the stomach and walks off, and you have to fight your way through the post-apocalyptic New York, and defeat several enemies and rescue Merritt. During the game, you encounter multiple enemies and bosses, with my favorites being Bobo, Jick, and Willie. Willie is the leader of the Black Dragon game and the final boss of the game. Bobo is the first boss character you encounter, and Jick is his identical twin, except he has glasses, a beard, and a mohawk. The 7 enemies are William, Roper, Jick, Linda, Bobo, Jeff, and Willie. The first and final stages are my favorites, followed by Jick's stage, and of course, the others after that. The Sega Genesis version is the best version. It's the closest to the arcade version. The NES version is the weakest in my opinion. Terrible graphics and character sprites, but the best story, with both the Lee brothers being separated and Jimmy Lee being the first boss of the game and the guy who orchestrated Maria's kidnapping, are my favorites of the NES version. The thing I like most about the NES version. They're also the most iconic thing about the NES version. But after defeating him, he once again joins the side of good, and they of course had to do this because the NES version, due to cartridge limitations, had to omit the 2-player co-op. In the second Double Dragon game, which is much better than the first, Willie, ashamed of his defeat, shoots and kills Merritt in retaliation. Now it's up to the Lee brothers to avenge her. Once again, you play as the Lee brothers. You fight your way through the post-apocalyptic New York, and you encounter multiple enemies and bosses like William, Roper, Linda, Jeff, and Willie from the first game, and 6 more characters: Bolo, O'Hara, Chintame, Burnham, and Abor, and a doppelganger of the Lee brothers. Once again, the Genesis version is the best version of Double Dragon and is the closest to the arcade version. Double Dragon is, in my opinion, the best of the original Double Dragon trilogy, with the Sega version once again being the best and the NES version being the worst and the weakest. The game has a brand new plot, with the Lee brothers defeating what's left of the Black Dragon gang and going around the world under orders from a fortune teller to find the Rosetta Stones. That's all I'm going to say about that. This game has 3D digitized graphics and improvised gameplay with more moves. Now it's time for Super Double Dragon. I'm on the third level. Don't have much to say about Super Double Dragon, other than, like I said earlier, I consider one of the best of the Double Dragon anthology, alongside 5 and 6. Super Double Dragon is a cross between Final Fight, the Streets of Rage, beat 'em up games. This game features, while it features the same story as Double Dragon 1, it features updated visuals, revamped graphics, gameplay, more moves, and of course, brand new enemies while still following the same story as the first one. So it's pretty much a graphically enhanced version of the very first Double Dragon video game. As you can see by the picture, one of my favorite things about this game is that this game is the first game to feature the Lee brothers, Billy and Jimmy Lee, with different ethnicities. As you can see by the picture here, Billy Lee is Asian, and Jimmy Lee is white American Caucasian. This idea would later be reused for one of my all-time favorite adaptations, the Double Dragon cartoon, which aired from 1993 to 1994. Like I said, that's all I have to say. That's all I have to say about Super Double Dragon. Like I said, I consider it the best of the overall, one of the best of the overall Double Dragon anthologies. Best visuals, best graphics, and best gameplay, and even more moves with a brand new series of enemies. So like I said, that's it for Super Double Dragon. Now it's time to take a break from the video games and go to the American-based cartoon, the Double Dragon cartoon. Like I've said in my previous previous reviews, I first saw Double Dragon in 93 or 94. I can't remember the exact year, but I instantly became a fan of this cartoon. This cartoon, along with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Bruce Lee, the WMAC Masters live action martial art video game based show, and a few more, got me interested in martial arts back in the mid to late 90s. Back in the early 90s, when this show aired, I did not have my own television back then, so I couldn't watch the show often. So I quickly forgot about the show until the 2000s, when I discovered the VHS at Blockbuster of the first 3 episodes. I rented this tape all the time. In 2006, when I discovered YouTube, I got a chance to watch the rest of season 1. And in 2013 and 14, to finally do a full-length version of the series, I finally finished the series. Both seasons 1 and 2. This cartoon was and is a cross between Saint Seiya, Ronin Warriors, the armor-based animes, Power Rangers, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Final Fight, Streets of Rage, and a PG version of Fist of the North Star, Hokuto no Ken. I love both seasons with
The Shadow Master will want to know about this.
I love both seasons, which both seasons consist of 13 episodes, and episodes 1 through 13 of season 1, episode 7, RPM 10, 11, and 12 are my favorites of season 2. The first season of the show introduces the main characters, which the first 2 episodes follow the plot of the NES version of Double Dragon, where the Lee brothers are separated at birth. Billy is raised to fight for truth and justice, and Jimmy Lee was raised to fight for injustice and become the first incarnation of the Shadow Master, the overall main antagonist of the video game. The first episode also features Bobo and Willie, the sub-bosses from the first game. The rest of the game features newly created material and characters from the cartoons, such as the Dragon Warriors, a crime-fighting martial arts superhero team consisting of Tsunami, the sumo who reminds me of E Honda from Street Fighter, Vortex, the street performer who uses maneuvers combined with who uses acrobatic maneuvers combined with martial arts. Colonel McReady, who reminds me of Jax, Combo, and Blade from Killer Instinct, Mortal Kombat, Eternal Champions, respectively. Kami, an armored female martial arts practitioner. Mike, Chop Pillar, a disabled cop who lost one of his arms, and Michael and Jason, the Junior Dragons, the Junior Double Dragons, with Michael, who reminds me of Skate from Streets of Rage, being the most prominent. All of the characters are awesome, with Tsunami, Vortex, McReady, and Kami being the coolest, besides the main characters, Billy, Jimmy, Lee, and of course the cop, Marin, who was a damsel in distress in the first in the video games. She is a cop in this series. The most annoying are Dodge, the mutant dragon warrior, who becomes more prominent in season 2, and Danny, a kid with glasses who likes to treat everything like a video game. These characters weren't horrible or terrible. They were just lame in comparison to the Dragon Warriors. Continuing with season 1 of the series, season 1 is like some Chinese Canadian armor martial arts based anime. In season 2, where the production values increase, season 2 is like some Aladdin Disney based animated movie style production. Season 1 was more superhero martial arts fantasy crime thriller, whereas season 2 is more sci-fi fantasy crime thriller with a new mutant sci-fi storyline similar to Marvel's X-Men, which was airing around this time. The only things I didn't like about this cartoon was they never found their father, John Lee, and they never rescued their mother from the void, which was called the Abyss in season 1. And of course, I mentioned earlier, this season focuses a lot on Dodge, the lion mutant hybrid character, over the Dragon Warriors. Another thing I didn't like was the killing off of Willie and Bobo and placing them with bland, generic, unmemorable henchmen. But like I said before, this cartoon is one of the best cartoons of all time, and I consider it not only one of the best of the 90s, but one of the best cartoons of all time. It's up there with the cartoons and animes of today and yesteryear, the 2000s. And this cartoon is even better now than when I first discovered it 10 plus years ago on YouTube. Before I rewatched this show, both seasons 1 and 2, I saw the YouTubers, the Witch Watchers, who does this cartoon stupidity where he makes a video collage of all the stupid moments from various superhero action and video game based cartoons from the 90s, and one of them was the Double Dragon. He calls it insert title here, douchebaggery or stupidity. And I saw all the dumb moments. When I finally got around to watching the show was even better than I remember. The writing was, despite being a kid's show, the writing was stronger than ever and doesn't shy away from violence, with 2 episodes dealing with Mike Chop Pillar, a disabled cop who lost one of his arms but is still able to be useful, and another episode involving a Connect in Fireball, a reformed prisoner who was doing his time in prison for accidentally almost killing a kid. And like I said in the first episode, what I didn't like, Willie and Bobo, they get sucked onto a mirror, never to be seen again for the rest of the series. So why being a camp superhero martial arts comedy cartoon for kids, the cartoon doesn't shy away from violence. It also tackles drugs and gang violence, which these things were hugely big in the 1990s and are still a problem several years later. But it was worse during this period, the 90s. So yeah, like I said, the Double Dragon cartoon. The Double Dragon cartoon. Let's talk about other things about the cartoon, like the voice acting cast. The voice acting cast. So yeah, like I said, the voice acting is superb. The Ocean Dub cast, who make everything good. They turn everything they touch to gold. And you have the legendary Michael Donovan, who of course Michael Donovan, he portrayed every main protagonist, good guy character in every cartoon in the 90s. He's Billy Lee. You got the legendary Scott McNeil, who's done a lot of voices as the more sarcastic and belligerent Jimmy Lee. Scott McNeil is really good at playing aggressive, sarcastic characters, villains, and of course anti-heroes, which he once again plays here. You got the legendary Ian Corporate, who's the first incarnation of Goku from the Dragon Ball Z Ocean dub, playing Vortex. You got the legendary Gary Chalk portraying Tsunami. He also portrays Michael Pillard and the mayor of Metro City in this series. The legendary Jim Burns portrays the Shadow Master. The Shadow Master portrays the main antagonist, Shadow Master, and the rest of the voice actors also portray dual roles in this show right here. The fighting is awesome. Most of the fighting consists of them fighting with magical swords, which this turned a lot of people off to the cartoon. This cartoon has a mixed to negative reception. Either you like it or you don't. Most people like it, most people don't, especially hardcore fans of the video game. They turned a video game which was about two vigilante brothers fighting crime in a post-apocalyptic world and rescuing Marin into a superhero martial arts fantasy-based cartoon with mystical swords and armor. But they still kept certain elements. of the game. Hell, they actually made this video game more realistic. In the video game, they're two vigilante brothers fighting crime. Here, they're vigilantes in the first two episodes, but at the end of the second episode, become deputized by the police officers. I actually kind of like that. That makes it more realistic. In real life, you can't go out by yourself and decide to fight crime. They're only people who are licensed. Only police officers and other forms of military or secret agents who are licensed for stuff like that can do stuff like that. So I actually like that. That makes it more realistic. Like I said, this cartoon is more similar to Streets of Rage and Final Fight than Double Dragon, because instead of New York, this series is set in Metro City. It's set in Metro City, that's where Guy Cody and Mike Haggard from Final Fight, that's where they reside. The fighting, like I said, the fighting is awesome, especially in the first two episodes, which closely mirrors the video game. There's even one scene where Bobo character is taking garbage cans and throwing them at the Lee brothers, throwing them at Billy Lee, and Billy Lee is blocking and hitting him and dodging them. That's what Bobo does in the original trilogy when you encounter him for the first time. Willie, of course, is some crazy cowboy who shoots people, which he does. He's the only one character in the video games who uses a gun. The Shadow Master character is one of the coolest bad guys of all time. He's like a combination of Venom and Spawn with mystical martial arts sword-based powers, and one of the most evil and most hated characters in the cartoon. I'm mad that there was never a final showdown involving the Lee brothers, the Dragon Warriors, and the Shadow Master. I hate that he never fully got his comeuppance for all the terrible things he did in this cartoon. In season 2, there's another villain introduced called the Shadow Monster. Now, unlike the Shadow Master, he was more annoying, and he got what was coming to him. The Lee brothers with brand new armor, with brand new Kabuki style armor, buried him under rubble in the final episode, in what was supposed to be the final episode of season 2. The links to this cartoon will be in the description box below. If you find this cartoon for some odd reason, episodes 13 and 7 are aired out of order. The 13th episode is aired as the final episode of the series, even though it's only the very first episode of the series. So
if you could make a dragon a me,
so with that being said, that is the Double Dragon cartoon review. Now it's time for the video game Double Dragon 5. Double Dragon 5, in my opinion, is not only one of the best Double Dragon games, it's one of the best fighting games of all time. This is the best fight. This is one of the best. It's one of the best and worst fighting games in the 90s. I'm gonna start with the bad. It's the worst because the game is extremely stiff. The controls are extremely stiff and difficult. It's vastly similar to the SNK games. Now, unless you play those games, you'll find the controls to be hard, difficult, and completely unresponsive. The game is also extremely difficult because it tries to incorporate martial arts with weapons. Another thing I didn't like about the game was that only from the good guys, only the Lee brothers are playable. None of the other Double Dragon characters, with the exception of Marion and the Eldest Dragon, appear in this video games, and Marion and the Eldest Dragon appear as supporting characters in this video game. None of the other Double Dragons appear or are playable. You can only play as the bad guys, and only the Shadow Master and the newest henchmen appear in the game. Willie and Bobo do not appear in this video game. Those are the only three things I like about the video game. But the video game is actually even better than the cartoon because it gives you more action. More gameplay modes, and finally something the cartoon didn't have: a legitimate continuation, a beginning and an end. The Double Dragon, you actually fight and kill and beat the Double Dragon in this video game. There are 5 modes. I'm only going to talk about the 3 modes I care about. That's the versus mode, which is 1 player, which is 1 and 2 players, where you can play as the Lee brothers, where you can fight as the Lee brothers and the bad guys of the game.
We must go in with them. Here.
Master, I'm going with you.
That's
Not come back.
There's also tournament mode, which is an arcade mode where you can play as both the Lee brothers and you face everyone in the game and see the characters ending. You see that specific character's ending at the end, what they did after the tournament. Then there's of course my favorite mode, quest mode, a story mode featuring the Lee brothers, where you fight the main characters of the game in this story mode, tournament arcade style mode. This is something I wish all fighting games back in the 90s and early 2000s had. They didn't have this until the mid and late 2000s. So that's one thing I couldn't stand. That's one thing I couldn't stand about fighting games in the early to mid 90s, and love about this fighting game. So it's one of the best fighting games of all time. The fighting game is a cross between Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, SNK's World Heroes, with elements from Samurai Showdown and the various weapon-based fighters from the 90s, like Soul Calibur or Soul Edge, Weapons Lord, and of course Samurai Showdown and Killer Instinct. But yeah, the video game is also darker and much more mature looking than the cartoon. This video game has a mixed and negative reception amongst fans. Some like it. A lot of people don't, especially hardcore fans of the Double Dragon video games, for altering the game instead of this is a fighting game instead of being a beat 'em up. But I think it's one of the best Double Dragon games alongside 4 and Double Dragon 6, which of course is the movie. Well, just like the cartoons and other video games, the link to this video game will be in the description box below. By the way, the website is called playretrogames.com. Type that in Yahoo and that should, or Google, and that should be the first thing to come up. But the links will be in the description box below. Well, this has been my review of Double Dragon. Turn the video off right now if you don't want to hear the rest of the music.
Kona-san, you are a dragon warrior now?
You can avoid it. Jimmy and Billy Lee are Dragon Masters now.